Welcome to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada. We've got a spectacular show and story for you today.
You know, that's a great descriptor. I thought you'd come up with something like snuggly.
Snuggly? I don't even know where snuggly would come from.
Well, the guest we have...
Oh, that's true.
Yes.
Our listeners will know in a moment why that makes sense.
Yes.
I didn't make the connection in my head.
Yeah. If you're wondering why this might be a snuggly show, but although it will be a spectacular show. If you're wondering why it could be snuggly, is because the boots that you got for Christmas under the tree, the UGG boots that are just warming your feet and making you feel so wonderful and cozy, were invented or founded. The company was founded by our guest. Brian Smith is with us. They're celebrating their 40th anniversary. Brian, thanks for coming in.
Hey, my pleasure, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Glad to, it's so I think we talked before the show that we've probably done this before. I mean, I know we have a long time ago,
yes.
In different studios, under different circumstances, but thanks for coming back.
Great, my pleasure.
You're looking amazing.
Thank you.
And you've got this really wonderful name that you've developed, and it's now spread worldwide.
The UGG word?
Yes.
Yes, it's a brilliant brand. It's probably the most emotional brand that I can think of, because everybody I meet tells me about their first pair of UGG boots, and it's very hard to think of another product in the world that someone would come and tell you how they remember their first contact with that product.
It's almost like a trip to Disneyland.
It sort of is.
It's nostalgia.
It's just such a brilliant brand, and it, even though I sold the business several years ago, it's developed a persona that just belies logic. It's everybody loves the brand.
And not only are they wonderfully comfortable, but they look really good.
Yeah, there's some.
They're very handsome.
There's some very sophisticated styles now. Lots of shoe styles, lots of women's styles that are. They're even got some styles that have no sheepskin in them.
I was a little surprised by that. You were wearing Uggs when you walked in, and I commented saying I thought you would be in something else, because in my mind there is only one version of the Ugg boot. But how many different versions do you guys actually have?
Loads of loafers and step-ins and driving shoes, driving mocks, thongs, sandals. A huge number of different styles for men and women. So it's worth going to the UGG website to just go
to just peruse the different styles.
Tour the site. You'll be amazed at how many products there are. Yeah,
and I'm sure there are people out there right now that got their pair for Christmas and they're warming their toes just nicely in them, right?
That's right.
So, Brian, you have looked back over 40 years, and I'm guessing in that look back you remember so many amazing things. And I think one of the coolest things about this looking back is you've been able to take a lot of what you've learned, and you've now put it in the form of a book. Well, not now, but you have.
Yeah, I wrote this book. It's called The Birth of a Brand, and it is pretty much a roadmap for entrepreneurs, because all of the years I was building the business, I would make notes and I go, that'd be good in a book one day, and I would put it in this file. And 20 years passed, and I sold the company. It just got too big for me at the time, and I was thinking, what can I do? And I found this file, and it was all of these notes about lessons learned from being an entrepreneur. And so I just basically wrote down the history of the UGG brand from when I owned it, and it spanned 20 years, and is just the most amazing book. I've got so many great compliments about how.
And by the way, if you're listening and you want to check the book out, it's on Amazon now.
Yes.
Or you can go to the website uggfounder.com.
That's correct.
And that will have information on Brian. And Brian, you're now kind of retired from UGG, but you're doing speaking. That's kind of what your life now is. Keynote speaking.
It's interesting. I never thought I would be a speaker, but the book was so successful that people were saying, oh my God, you should be on the stage talking about this. And that led me to the first time, and I actually did a good job.
You got the nice accent.
That led me to the next stage and the next stage, and suddenly I find I'm in demand all over the world as a public speaker. I'm making really good speaking fees, but I'm giving great value to all of the attendees.
And as Aaron said, the accent doesn't hurt.
It does not hurt at all.
Who recommended that you develop this wonderful accent for speaking? Because it's genuinely, it sounds almost real.
It is.
Yeah.
After 40 years in America, you'd think I'd be... In fact, in Australia, they think I sound American.
Do they?
Yeah, they
so
do.
they can tell that you've been away for a while.
They can definitely tell, yeah.
So the journey, I'm thinking when people look at you now and they see the success, you've built a world brand, which is something there's not a lot of people that can claim they've built a world brand.
No, especially a brand that's in the billions. That's amazing. And even though in my tenure I didn't do the billions, but I set it up
to do that.
Yeah. But it was a very inauspicious start. I mean, I was an accountant in Australia, had been working full time and studying at night. And after 10 years, I finally graduated, and I quit the same day because I really hated accounting. And I thought, what'll I do? Where are all the big trends? And it struck me that all the big trends are coming out of California, like Levi jeans and waterbeds and all the surf brands and things. So I thought, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to find the next big thing to bring back to Australia. And so I arrived here with my surfboard. I started surfing Malibu, it was always a big dream of mine. And after a couple of months, I still hadn't found it until one day I was on the beach. It was like November, and I was pulling on my sheepskin boots after surfing because my feet were freezing. And I thought, oh my God, I got goosebumps. There's no sheepskin boots in America. And 1 in 2 Australians had some sort of sheepskin footwear at that time.
Seriously?
Yeah, and I thought, oh my God, this is a no-brainer. That's why I got the goosebumps. And so,
I'm getting them right now just hearing you tell the story.
So we called up a manufacturer in Western Australia, and we ordered, me and my buddy, we were going to go into business together, and we ordered 6 pairs of samples, and they arrived in November, and we thought, okay, Doug was going to be the salesman because I was terrified of sales. So he went around to all the shoe stores and came back a couple of weeks later with about 150 business cards of every single shoe retailer and not a single order. And he said, Brian, they tell me I'm crazy selling sheepskin in California. And I understood that attitude, but the Australian climate's identical to California.
Good point.
Right? So I thought, how come all my friends up at Malibu think it's a great idea?
Brian, let me interrupt you at that point, because that thought's going to carry us back when we come back from the break. Brian Smith is with us, the founder of UGG Boots. You know the company. UGGfounder.com is the website. The Birth of a Brand is his book, A Roadmap for Entrepreneurs. You're listening to Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
Stay with us. We're going to find out how he walks the talk when we get back. Stay with us.
Doing okay?
Doing great.
You're
Absolutely.
Great.
You can take your heads off.
Okay.
Yeah,
We've got like a 2-minute break, so
okay,
we always take a little bit of a break in between.
Good.
Gives
Did
us
you
a chance
read
to chat.
Barbarian Days?
Barbarian Days.
Yeah, it was by Finnegan, the surfer. He spent a bunch of time in Malibu and then Ventura, and then was out in. He was between Hawaii and L.A.
Really?
And then did his own endless summer kind of trip when he was in his 20s. And
I'd
just
love to
traveled
read
around the
that.
world.
No, I don't know that.
It's brilliant. I mean, on the back cover, one of the guys writes, Finnegan writes about waves the way Hemingway writes about bullfighting.
Yeah.
And things that you can't put in words, those feelings you get when you surf and the way that the waves form. He just has a magical way of describing them. I've never read anything like it.
Can I read
Yeah, I was going to write it out for you.
Finnegan, yeah.
I forget his first name. His last name was Finnegan.
And what was the name?
Barbarian Days.
I've never even heard of that book.
Well, he started off, longboarding out in Southern California, and then his father was a movie producer, and they moved to Hawaii. And he found a local break there right by their home, and this was just as shortboards were starting to make their appearance, and made his way into that world.
I'd love to read that.
Yeah, it's really, really
in fact,
wonderful.
In the forward of this is a great story about my best surf ever.
Nice.
You'll be blown away what it is.
Okay, we're coming back in. These boots are gonna walk all over you. We watched a special on her the other day, remember?
Who's that? Dusty Springfield?
Yeah.
Is that the...
Not
that the
Petula
artist?
Clark. I
This
think
song makes
so.
me
No,
think
that
of
was
Austin
Nancy
Powers
Sinatra.
Nancy Sinatra.
Sinatra.
Oh, that's so weird. She's connected with me on LinkedIn.
Amazing.
Isn't that
Nice.
crazy?
Well, welcome back. You're
Yep.
listening to Biz Talk Believing
I
in
guess I
Seeing Talk
stepped on you.
Radio.
Sorry about that.
Maybe
No,
Yes.
no problem. I'm enjoying the music. Where we walk the talk. How about that? Want a podcast of today's show? Of course you do. Go to espn1700.com. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Kanata.
I'm Bob Ryan, and Brian Smith is with us, the founder of UGG Boots. It's not just boots anymore.
No,
It's
it's a complete line of footwear, yes.
yeah, and it's a worldwide brand into the billions. It's an amazing story. They're experiencing their 40th anniversary in 2018.
That's
Fun celebration.
gotta be great, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the founder, Brian Smith, is now you've somewhat retired from UGG, and now you're speaking and traveling around and giving keynote speeches, and you've written a book called The Birth of a Brand, which is a roadmap for entrepreneurs.
That's exactly what it's for, yeah. And I love the speaking because I have so many people come up to me afterwards, and I'll explain in a little bit about what the message of the book is. But I'd love to finish my story.
Yes, we want to get back to your
about
experience.
how I pivoted at Malibu, trying to figure out why nobody loved these boots.
Because you had the idea on the beach, and your partner at the time went around and got 150 cards and pitches.
Zero sales.
No sales.
Yeah. And I was thinking, well, all my buddies up at Malibu think this is a great idea, and it struck me that most of them had been to Australia on their surf trips, and they'd brought 4 or 5 pairs back for their buddies. So within the surf community, sheepskin boots were pretty well known. And so I decided to, Doug and myself, any good entrepreneur, when you hit the wall, you have to pivot, right?
Right.
So we said, well, let's go check out the surf shops. And so I went on the road this time. I went down to, the Con Surfboards in Santa Monica, and I opened up my little bag, and he goes, "Oh my God, sheepskin boots, they're the best. My buddies have got some, they rave about them. What are you doing with them?" I said, "Well, we're thinking of going into business, importing them." "Oh my God, you'll make a fortune. This is going to be the greatest thing,
Now, what year is this?
This was 79.
And at this point, were surf shops selling shoes at all? I mean, I know nowadays
Just flip-flops.
they're apparel.
Yeah,
things
it
too,
was
but-
pretty much just flip-flops and surfboards, And so I went to the next store, down at Hermosa Beach, and oh my God, UGG boots, they're the best, you're going to make a fortune. And so Doug and I, regrouped after a week, and we thought, we are going to be instant millionaires. And neither of us realized that we hadn't asked for an order. Because we didn't have any inventory anyway. So what's the point, So we decided, oh my God, instant millionaires. So we had to raise some money we were both broke, so we had to get some capital for buying inventory. And there's this great saying that once you start out on a path, the universe conspires to work with you. And that is such a universal saying. It's thousands of years old. And so now that we're on this path of needing money, my roommate said, "Oh, there's some guys at my office that are looking for investments." And just like that, within 2 or 3 days, we had 20 grand, and didn't even have to write a business plan. They were just so enthusiastic.
And 20 grand back in the late 70s.
That was about 70 grand
That's
today.
a good number.
So we sent 15 to Australia and ordered 500 pairs, and this is like late November, right? So they arrived in mid-December, and we put them all in my spare bedroom in my little house in Santa Monica, and Doug loaded up his car and I loaded up my van, and we went out to make our fortune, So I drove back to Con Surfboards, and now I've got a huge duffel bag full of product with an order pad, and I go, "Okay, John, how many do you want?" And he goes, "Oh, well done, Brian, but we just sell surfboards and trunks and sandals and flip-flops. We couldn't sell those. They're way too expensive for it. You should go to the shoe stores." And I was like, "Oh, crap." And off to the next store, "Oh, well done, but we just sell surfboards and bikinis and trunks, and we couldn't sell those, but you're going to do fantastic. And we went all the way back, Hermosa Beach, Newport.
Was there a stigma about surfers that they were all, living paid dollar to dollar, dime to dime?
Well, there was, but there's a lot of rich surfers as well. So I went all the way through Newport, Laguna, San Diego, and Doug and I regrouped after that week on the road, and we tallied up our orders, and the first year's sales of UGG was 28 pairs.
Whoa.
Exactly $1,000 by as a fluke. And that was like horribly disappointing. But the good thing is it formed the framework of the book, which is The Birth of a Brand. And the philosophy behind this whole book is that you can't give birth to adults.
That's a really... Wait. Okay. That is the first time I've ever heard that, and that is such an impactful statement that you just made.
It is.
What you give birth to, you have to care for and nurture.
I'm getting goosebumps that you get it. Right?
Wow.
Absolutely.
So it's such an infallible rule that the book starts off with everything. Doesn't matter if you're on the stock exchange of the Wall Street Journal, right? Every business on that page started with someone conceiving it, taking an action, which is the birth, right? The birth of UGG was buying 6 pairs of samples, and then it just goes into this horrible infancy, and it lies there, and it lies there, and it lies there, and it's just feeding, changing diapers, feeding, changing diapers. Every now and again you'll get a giggle out of it, but
Which is usually gas.
Yeah. and that. There's no amount of jiggling the cradle or overfeeding. This infant can't get up and go to college. Right? It has to be an infant. But eventually they'll start toddling, which is a cool stage. Like businesses are starting to, the first true believers are buying it, and magazines are writing articles about you, and you now realize you have a live thing rather than this infant. And that'll quickly go into the youth, which is the best phase of every business, where you've got consistent orders coming in, production's on time, billing and shipping and accounting is working, the inventory, the warehouse is working, and you can run a $20-30 million business in that youth stage. But if it's a really, really good service or a product like UGG was, it'll hit the teenage years, right? And you'll remember you want to be at every single party in town at that age. Well, the urge to be in every trade show, in every retail outlet and everything, you can really get into trouble fast by outstripping your
ability to follow up and
both in staff and money, and that's a super dangerous phase. But if you make it through that, the accountants come and put all the controls in, and you have a mature business.
Is this description part of your book then?
This book, that is the theme of this book.
Really?
And I take you from infancy right through.
That's brilliant. Seriously, I love doing this show because of moments just like this.
Yeah.
Brian Smith is with us, the founder of UGG, passionate innovator, author, keynote speaker. The Birth of a Brand is his book. It's on Amazon right now. You don't want to miss this. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
Stay with us. We got a lot more with Brian when we get back. God, I love it when things like that happen.
I love that you get it. Yeah, it's really good.
It's when it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, and somebody says something, and it just hits me like a ton of bricks, that's brilliant. It really is.
Okay.
I've never heard that description.
No, I made that up, and in fact, I wrote
I love that.
you remember I said I put these things in a file?
Yeah.
I'll tell you how long ago I did that. It was the first time ever that I typed the words on a keyboard and went somewhere else to get it out of the printer. So in other words...
So you remember that moment really well.
It was ingrained, and I put that in the front of a 3-ring binder, and that's where I threw all these notes.
God, you were brilliant to do that.
Yeah.
What an amazing...
It was,
and who knew you were going to end up with $1 billion brand to go back and count the store?
Yeah, it's just so lucky.
I love this.
So lucky, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, everything before that was in a typewriter, and I remember literally going print, and I had to go elsewhere to get the paper.
This still excites you, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
That's and there's so much more for you to do.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the next segment of the story is, okay, what did you do?
Okay, we're coming back in, guys.
Where the money is being invested. First things first.
For those of you on Facebook, we're listening to You Come From a Land Down Under, appropriate for our guest today. Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk, and sometimes in our Uggs. How about that? You're listening to us on ESPN 1700, but did you know you could watch us too? Yes, you can. Watch us on Facebook. Visit our Biz Talk Radio page and share your comments. We always appreciate your likes and shares. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
And I'm Bob Ryan, and Brian Smith is with us, the founder of the company we all know. Everybody, it's not very often, Brian, we have a guest on that everybody listening will know what we're talking
it's
about.
It's insanely amazing, yeah.
It is,
yeah.
And you've done some really cool things, but I think of all the things that I know that you've done, one of the coolest is that you started years ago writing things down that were challenges and opportunities and growth and sticking them in a file because you knew at some point in time you might want to write a book.
Yeah, I had no idea if I ever would, but when I decided to, it was the luckiest thing I'd ever done because it was like my roadmap, and it was like walking down memory lane of all. Because when I did start, I forgot about that file, and I got into about the third year, and I'm going, oh my God, was it that year or that year? And that caused me to go back and find that file, which I did.
And well done.
And everything was there, yeah.
And well done. And the description that you gave right when the last segment was that nobody ever births an adult.
Yeah.
It's a baby when it comes out, and it needs constant care. And those people that start a business expecting to have an adult be born are going to be sadly disappointed.
Big time.
And they'll miss out on all the fun of having the baby and the toddler and the child and the teenager.
And what I've found from my speaking is that so many people start a business with the best intentions, but they hit this infancy and nothing seems to happen. That's when they give up. It's so sad because they don't realize that it has to gestate, it has to, be nurtured before it'll start moving. And I have people come up when they hear me speak and they go, oh, thank God, I was going to give my business up this week, but now I understand I'm in the infancy and I'm going to keep going.
So the culprit is they hit a little bit of resistance and don't realize that there's a hump to get over.
Exactly.
And give up before they even give their business
because
a
it takes
chance.
so long for people to understand a new concept or a new idea. You just can't land it on the desk and everybody buys it.
And God forbid you have a colicky baby on top of it, right? I mean, now you got a lot of attention to pay to it. That is one of the best descriptions of a business process I've ever heard, and it's in your book, The Birth of a Brand.
Yep.
Which is a guidebook or a roadmap, as you call it, for entrepreneurs.
For entrepreneurs, yeah.
So you were telling us the story about how you got started.
Yeah, well, selling 28 pairs in a year, that was a good time to give up.
$1,000.
Right,
yeah.
right. But I couldn't give up because I had another 480 pairs or something left in my third bedroom.
So
Did
you
it ever
weren't
cross your mind? Was there any thought of just flight? Just get out of here, and burn the boots. And
I thought about it, but I had my investors' money tied up, so I knew I had to try and salvage it. So I started doing swap meets and street fairs, and the best retail outlet I had was the back of my van at Malibu Beach.
No
and
kidding.
People were literally. Even I would go there even when the surf was crappy because so many people would be expecting me to be there, and so that next year I sold about 5,000 pairs. And
out of your van?
Out of the van, yeah. So not 5,000 pairs, $5,000 worth, right? And so I thought, okay, next season I'm going to advertise. So I got these models, girl and a guy, and posed them on the beach at Wind and Sea here in La Jolla, and perfect hair and clothing and makeup and the boots front and center in the ads, and the sales went to about $10,000. That's crazy. So the next year I got better looking models, a more expensive photographer, and posed the models on the beach at Wind and Sea with the perfect hair and suntans and clothes, and sales went to like $20,000, and I couldn't understand what was going wrong because I should have been doing way more than that. And I was having a beer with one of my surf shop owners, a retailer, and and I was explaining the situation. He goes, "Oh, shut up, Brian." He calls out to the back, "Hey, you guys, come out here." And all these 12, 13-year-old grommets come out, and he says, "What do you think of UGG?" And they went, "Oh, those UGGs, man, they're so fake. Have you seen those ads, those models? They can't surf." And instantly, I realised I'm sending the wrong message to my target market. And I almost kicked myself. It was so obvious. But for 3 years, I hadn't seen it. And so, again, as an entrepreneur, you have to pivot, right? So I called up a buddy of mine who was running a Scholastic Surf Association in Orange County. And I said, "Hey, Pete, do you have any young kids that are going to go pro soon that I can use for my advertising?" And he gave me two guys, Mike Parsons and Ted Robinson. And so instead of the expensive photographer, I just went surfing with him with my little Canon Sure Shot. And I went to Black's Beach in La Jolla, which is a mile-long walk.
It's a long walk down,
a long walk. And there's an equivalent one called Trestles up in San Onofre. And I took photographs of them walking to and from the beach. And I ran those ads in September, October, and sales went to $200,000.
No.
Just purely because I matched up the image of what I was trying to sell with
the right marketplace,
with the expectations of the kids in the marketplace. And it was like, that was the day I understood advertising and marketing.
It's almost like your child took their first step.
Absolutely.
That exciting, right?
And that was the beginning of my passion for marketing.
These sales, I would imagine, they're predominantly to surfers. It was
totally
being marketed to surfers.
Nearly 100%, yeah.
Did you, in your mind, did you think if I could just corner the market for surfers, this will be a tremendous success and I'll make some money? Or did you know, if I get surfers on board, the culture could trickle out? Did you think that the whole world was your market, or did you think that surfers were...
I knew because of Australia the whole world was the market, but I also knew, remember why I came to California? The trends are coming out of here, right? And I knew that if I can get into the surf market, they lead the trends. In fact, I can even remember, I hate to say I'm this old, but when the first T-shirt came out with a blue stripe across the front, that was the first screen-printed T-shirt, and it was in a surf shop. Right?
No, really?
And that surf has driven the marketing of so many clothing lines. It's unbelievable. So I knew if I could really nail the surf market, that would trickle out to others.
So you got the surfers, you did your own photography, you ran the ads, your sales go up to 200,000. Yep. What happens next?
Well, that should have been, like the beginning of the good times.
Right.
But again, that was like all in a 3-month period, September through December, and then summer comes along, and how do we grow from there?
By the way, did you have the name UGGs at that point in
time?
Yes, so you were already branding the name.
I registered the UGG trademark right at the very beginning. Yeah.
And could I ask you just real quickly,
Sure.
where does the word UGG come from? And we'll hear the answer when we get back.
Okay, deal.
I want to find out where UGG comes from, and then we'll hear what happens after the child starts walking and it starts developing a personality, right? I mean, it's a really cool story. Brian Smith, the UGG founder, is with us. Innovator, author, keynote speaker. The Birth of a Brand is his book. It's available on Amazon. If you're a budding entrepreneur, you want to get it right now. You're listening to Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
Don't you dare go anywhere. We'll be right back.
They are all there. The hopeless dreamers, the runners, the technicians.
This is fun. Thank you.
That is good, yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's after 10,000 interviews now, which probably is
amazing.
There's a few that I remember. I remembered you coming in, but I don't remember this good of an interview the last time.
No.
I don't think the story was this developed. You hadn't written the book back then.
Yeah.
So it's a much better developed story. I will remember this story until the day I die.
Cool, okay.
I love this.
Has the manufacturer remained the same the entire time? Is it all in
if
Australia still?
if we get enough time, there's a good story around that. Because I'm getting into now. There's some good stories building up, but now I go into some horror stories.
Oh, good.
Which is from what you've told me, that's what your audience.
We don't push for that to happen, but if it's there,
Yeah.
I want to get the story out because that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
So you talk about
Giving life betterment information to people.
Yeah, you talk about the ecstatic highs and the crushing lows.
That's
in
right.
your bio.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, we're coming back in.
Yeah, so we'll jump forward a couple of years, okay? I love that song.
Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. And we want to thank our engineer, Jeff Bilodeau, our music by Derek Gaudette, our interns, Sarah, Andrew, Leah, Deidre, Chrissy, Alex, and Dan, who's in studio with us today. We couldn't do it without you. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
And I'm Bob Ryan. Glad to have you with us. This new year is starting off just brilliantly. Brian Smith is with us, the founder of a company that we all know. It's UGG. And it is a wonderful story. His book, The Birth of a Brand, is something that if you're an entrepreneur or you know somebody that is a budding entrepreneur or wants to be, it's a book you really got to get. The things, Brian, you've already told us, I think just that one concept alone of the fact that you don't birth an adult is worth the story. And I know there's a lot more in there. So we've been talking and bringing the story forward now to where you've got a couple $100,000 of sales, and we want to move on that. But I was asking you if you could just tell us before you finish those stories where the name UGG comes from.
Nobody knows, right?
Really?
There are a couple of old guys in Australia who claim they invented that word, but they can't prove it. And UGG has become a very descriptive name for sheepskin footwear in Australia. And but they were spelling it all different types of UGH, UGHS, UG.
I'm thinking Charlie Brown, right? Wasn't that one of the major things that he would say is UGG when what's her name would mess with him?
He did,
Lucy.
yeah.
Either that or it's what the sheep says when they call next.
That was good.
So anyway, I just registered UGG because the trademark law in America is, if you're the first and continuous user, you have trademark rights. So I did that. But yeah, it's very descriptive, and there's a lot of history that goes into the whole trademarking issue.
But nobody truly knows where the story comes from. I mean, where the name comes from.
Nobody knows who invented that word.
You mentioned when you started this, 1 in 2 Australians roughly had a pair of these sheepskin boots. Were there competing manufacturers of
many?
There were many in Australia?
Every little town in Australia had a sheepskin factory churning out some sort of sheepskin.
Were they all referred to as UGG?
Yes.
That was the universal
it was
word
a descriptive
for
word.
Kind of like Xerox or Kleenex now.
Yeah. Similar, but different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So back to the story.
Okay.
You've done a couple $100,000 in sales because you now have the surf market kind of moving in your direction.
Yeah. So let's jump forward a couple of years. I've graduated from there to the skiing to the snowboarding, which was really big, and we've got sales now of $2.5 million. And that original investor that we put $20,000 in, we thought we would never ever need any more money than that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had to buy him out and get a bigger one. Then we had to buy him out and get a bigger one. So now I've got 3 new partners coming in with the next round of financing, and they're in Anaheim as Neil, Paul, and Joe. And the deal was that we were going to share the company 25% each, which I thought was fair at the time. And the proviso was that I didn't get my 25% stock issued until I finished this little trademark lawsuit that I had going on with a UGH company at that time. And I was also the sales rep for Southern California now. So they were going to do all the internal office work, and I was on the road selling, which I loved. The very first day after we moved all the inventory up to their warehouse in Anaheim, I drove down to Huntington Surf and Sport, and I walked in the door, and Alan says, "Hey, Brian, I heard you sold the company." And I went, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, I called an order in this morning, and they said you don't own it anymore." I said, "You're kidding me, they said that?" And I couldn't wait to get out of the store, and I went to the Shell gas station next door, because this is before cell phones, right? And I called up and I said, "Neil, what the hell are you telling people?" And he says, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "You're telling them I don't own the company." He said, "Well, you don't." I said, "Yes, I do. You're my 3 new partners." And he goes, "No, you don't get your stock until..." And I just went, "Oh my God." And I drove from Huntington straight back to San Diego, and I pulled out the contract, and I read it, and I reread it, and I went, "Oh my God.
You've just given away your company."
Own any of the company.
Wow. Whoa.
Did you consult with anybody when you signed the contract?
No, I ex-accountant,
Right.
pretty savvy with contracts and stuff. And anyway, I went into this huge depression, and for days I just moped about, just didn't know what to do with myself, because I'd seen myself as the CEO of this huge international company one day, and now I didn't even own it. And I can remember after about the third day, I was lying on the floor on my back in the living room one night with my wife sitting on the couch, and we were watching TV, and I clicked off the TV when the show finished, and I rolled over on my stomach and got up on my hands and knees and started crawling to the bedroom. And my wife, Laura, just looked at me and says, "You get up now and walk to bed like a man." And it scared the crap out of me, And I out of shock, I sort of stood up.
Gosh.
And as I stood up, it was like my head coming out of a fog. And I thought, oh my God, there's so much more to life than this crappy little sheepskin business, And that night I slept like a baby. And the next day I was back to meditating and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Will I be a real estate? No. Business broker? Maybe. Accountant? Never. And then I thought, what do I love doing? And I thought, oh my God, I have come to love sales.
Which is interesting. I even wrote down shift to sales.
From an accountant, that was a huge
you've made
shift.
a big change now.
And then I thought, okay, well, what'll I sell? And that's when I got goosebumps again. I thought, oh my God, UGG. I love UGG boots. I'm going to get them on everybody's foot in America, And so I went back up to Anaheim, and I said, look, I may never own this company, but I'm going to do my damnedest to get a pair of UGG boots on everybody in America. And so I started going on the road. And now the reason selling was fun was that all these retailers were now my buddies, and I was, instead of taking, which is what I thought sales was when I was an accountant, now I'm realizing, God, this guy just made 30 grand off me last year. This guy just made $80,000 because he's stocking my outfits.
Right.
And I realized that now I'm a benefactor. So every time I went into a retail store, I didn't even care if the owner was there. I would fix up all the inventory on the shelves. I'd make sure the sizing was right. I'd swap out sizes that weren't going to sell, and that was now my real estate. And so I fell in love with being a road salesman. And I got back to the office after the first month, and Neil handed me an envelope, and I opened it up, and it's a check for $5,000. And he says, "That's your commissions." I went, "Oh shit, it's the first money I've ever pulled out of the business." And I got back the next month, and there's a check for $10,000, and next month another $10,000. And I thought, oh my God, this is pretty damn good. And that led to another one of the bits of philosophy which is in this book, The Birth of a Brand. And that is that nearly always your most disappointing disappointments will become your greatest blessings. And you could think
But
back,
it's hard to know that, isn't it?
It doesn't matter. It's a rule of the universe. And when I ask people from the stage, I'll have 2,000 people in the audience, I'll say, put your hand up if something happened to you in the last 12 months that at the time you thought was the greatest disaster of all time, and now you look back and say, thank God that happened. And I will tell you, 90% of the audience put their hand up.
Let me stop you right there. We're going to hear more of that story from Brian Smith, the founder of UGG, the author of The Birth of a Brand, on Amazon right now. You're listening to Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
So much more when we get back. Stay with us.
The story is amazing.
Yeah. And it's good that sound bites are sort of working into the timing.
Oh, you're brilliant too.
Yeah.
It's funny if we can maneuver it to that somehow. I think we try a little bit, but it's rare that we get really good opportunities. You're great.
Yeah.
You're really great.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Were you working on this lawsuit? I mean, did you hire an attorney to fight the patent?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Because you still had the option or the possibility that you would.
And I knew we'd win because I knew I could predate her selling into this market.
Yeah.
But it was actually good to fight that, because at the time there were 20 different Australians coming into the market thinking, oh, UGGs is generic, I can come in and do it, but having a lawsuit that was actually won in federal court in the US,
right,
gave you the status and the precedent.
They pretty much put a wall up, so then they started disappearing. So it was worth.
You really don't have any competition world. I mean,
There is, but you don't.
nobody
really-
knows. I don't know
No,
anything about it.
No.
If it's there, it's not well
Yeah.
known.
Okay, guys, we're coming back in.
Yeah. The next one's a long segment, so it might take two.
We've got 2 left.
Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk, and we are broadcasting from the ESET studios today. ESET Internet Security. Do more. And you're going to want to get a podcast of today's show. Trust me on this. And by the way, any of our previous shows, Now We're Talking, go to ESPN1700.com. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
I'm Bob Ryan. Brian Smith is with us, UGG founder, passionate innovator, author, keynote speaker. The Birth of a Brand is his book. It is a roadmap for entrepreneurs. Launching Your Entrepreneurial Passion and Soul is the subtitle of the book. Brian, again, thanks for coming in.
Hey, my pleasure.
You were you're moving us forward with the story.
Yeah.
And it's we only have 2 segments left, which
Okay.
is so disappointing because there's so much I want to hear.
Okay.
But you've brought us up to the point now where you haven't. I don't think you've gotten the stock in your company back yet.
No.
But you're earning commissions as a salesman
Yep.
on the road, and
That's right.
your passion now is to get a pair of Uggs on every American's feet.
Yeah. And it was doing great. Like for 3 or 4 seasons now, we're doing from now $5 or $6 million in sales.
Wow.
And it's growing really fast every year because I'm not just in Southern California. I'm on the plane. I put up 2 million frequent flyer miles
No.
over the next 3 or 4 years, just working with all the sales reps all across the country. And I can remember it was about after three years with this new arrangement. Neil had bought Joe and Paul out, so he now owned 100% of the company. But he and I had been getting on great. You know, we got to the point where he said, "Come on in next week. We're going to give you your 25% of your stock." You know, which was like heaven for me. And we bought new company cars for each other, and we took out life insurance policies on each other. And I remember I was out at the weekend, and my wife Laura called me on my cell phone because now I had a car phone, you know, and she was crying. And I go, "Laura, what's wrong?" And she said, "Oh, Brian, Neil's just died."
Oh.
And he was in a motocross, bike race and had a massive heart attack and never recovered. Oh, and my world just crashed again, you know. So I called up his widow and I said, "I'll be up tomorrow. We'll try and figure out what to do." And so I went up there and basically, I hadn't been inside the company, but luckily I was an accountant, so I became a forensic accountant for the next 6 months. I told his wife, I'll figure out where we're at, and meantime, the sales force was already going, and it was the best and worst of times. The best times was we had brand new black and charcoal colors, right? And the sales reps all across the country were just kicking butt with these colors. The orders were coming in so fast.
Was
But
this in the 80s or 90s?
This was in the mid-'80s.
Mid-80s,
Yeah.
okay.
And late 80s, yeah. And then the worst of times was that I was trying to figure out how to, writing business plans, going to the banks. Oh, Uggs are fad, it won't be around next year. To go to investment bankers. Well, it's sort of a fad, but, all your business is in 3 months. We don't like that big peak, we're not interested. And friends and family, we'd already outgrown them, So I was struggling trying to get financing. And I was calling up our manufacturer all the time, saying, "George, stick with me, buddy. Things are going great on the road. Sales are fantastic." And he was like dead silent, because he'd been used to 3 or 4 years of really solid payments from Neil, and he remembered back to when I had the business, and it wasn't quite as smooth, So as we got closer to July, August, we knew we had to ship in September. I still hadn't got a manufacturer. I didn't believe that George was going to come through, and I didn't have the money to get different ones. But so I started thinking laterally again. Who can I pivot to? And I thought, oh my God, tanneries in Australia. So I found a tannery. I sent a business plan down, and he said, "Come on down, Brian."
So this would be the supplier for the manufacturers that you're talking to.
This tannery would supply skins to many manufacturers, but mine was in Western Australia with his own source, right? So I went down and I met this guy, and he had a plaque on his desk that said, "I reserve the right to change my mind," you know. And God, did he ever. The first day was, "We're going to take on the world." The next day was, "Oh, this is so risky, Brian, I don't know. You're in California, I'm here." And then the next day was, "Don't worry, I found a guy in California that can work with you." And the next day was, "Oh, my family doesn't want to do it," you know. And I left after 5 days with no deal, right? And I got back to California, and the first thing I got was my sales rep said, "Brian, there's another company out there called Thunderwear, and they're selling sheepskin boots, and they're claiming they're going to put UGG out of business." And I looked them up in this, show directory, and it was like, they're a windsurfing company. What the hell are they doing in sheepskin boots? So I just threw it aside because I had bigger problems. And
just real quick, were you worried about the company going out of business at this point?
Yeah, we had no.
So it was
way
that bad.
Yeah, and we had like $6 million worth of sales on order already.
That you couldn't fill.
And we had no way to fulfill it.
Holy cow.
And talk about making decisions. Should I give up? Should I not? This is a valid question for every entrepreneur to have when you get to this stage. But I wasn't ready to give up yet, And so it got to be like September, and I thought, oh my God, should we do this trade show in Long Beach, which was the kickoff for the season? And I decided I'm not ready to tell all my customers I'm out of business yet, even though I didn't have a clue where I was going to come from. So we did the trade show, and I put all my last year's product in there. And as we finished setting up the trade show, I thought, okay, where are those Thunderwear people? And I looked up the directory, and I found them in the back corner of the trade show. And a couple of booths short, I stopped dead, and I went, oh my God. There was all my charcoal, all my black.
No, so they had adopted your product.
They'd gone around. My manufacturer had gone around me and found a different distributor, and that's when I knew, oh God, I'm out of business. And so I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my sales force. I didn't tell any customers. We just went through the show as if everything was normal. But all the time I'd talk to my wife, and we realised we're going to call everybody the following Monday and tell them to go buy the. By the way, they called them thugs. Which I thought was very appropriate, So I said, we'd just tell them to go buy thugs because it's all our product anyway. And so I got back after the trade show finished, and my wife and I decided, okay, tomorrow we'll call up. And so I called Gordon, the guy at the tannery, and I said, Gordon, look, thanks so much for all your help. I know you tried to put this together, but this is what George has done. He's gone behind my back, and we my wife and I have talked about it. We're going to close the business down tomorrow. And he was sad, and we went to bed. And the phone call rang about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's Brian. Yep, it's Gordon. Screw George. I'll get you all the boots you need. Seriously, just like that, we were back in business. No handshake, no contract, no nothing. He said, "Send me down the patterns," and I did that, and he copied them and sent them out to 5 different manufacturers. He cranked up his tannery to full production.
Oh my God!
And after about 3 weeks, we started getting 1,000 pairs, and then 2,000 pairs, and then every Friday 5,000 pairs.
Let me stop you here, Brian. This is a great story. A 3 o'clock in the morning phone call that lights your world up.
Yeah.
Brian Smith is with us, the founder of UGGs. We're hearing some great stories. They're in the book, The Birth of a Brand. You need to pick it up on Amazon. This is Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
We'll be right back.
Let's do a picture.
Good. We'll wrap this up pretty quickly.
Yeah, we have one more segment. Yeah, but this is good.
Can we do a picture?
Oh, do you want a publicity picture?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, scoot next to me and we'll put your headset on you. Let me get it straight for you here. Okay. Make sure his headset's straight.
It is. That's it.
Cool.
Yeah, last segment coming up.
This has been a fast interview.
It's
funny. I've been doing this show since '92. You would think that the hour would slow down for me after all this time.
Yeah.
does it. I
amazing.
walk in here, I blink, and we're walking out, and it's like I still can't believe the hour goes by.
Right.
Did
right.
Neil's insurance policy allow you to buy his wife out of business, or were you guys?
Good. That's good premonition.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to go there with you,
I'll
but
get there. Yeah.
but we only have eight minutes left. So whatever you think is
I'll
important.
wrap it up in 3 or 4.
Yeah, whatever you think is important to
Yeah.
talk about in the last 8 minutes
Okay,
together.
we're
I'll give
coming
it
in.
to you right away.
Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. Are you looking for an internship opportunity? Great, because we're looking for interns. We're looking for social media, technology, marketing, content writers, and all sorts of other opportunities. Send me your resume. Send it to Montana at biztalkproductions.com. That's BizTalk, BISTALK, Productions with an S. I look forward to hearing from you. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
And I'm Bob Ryan. Brian Smith, the founder of UGG, is with us. He is an author. The Birth of a Brand is a book you'll want to read. Great story. Brian, you just were bringing everybody up to speed on the fact that you came so close to losing your business, and one phone call from a sheepskin tanner supplier in Australia turned it around at 3 o'clock in the morning. So now you're back on track.
Yeah, well, we were getting like 5,000 pairs a week every Friday morning. The truck had arrived through customs. And our retailers in Southern California, they didn't wait for UPS. They were lined up outside the door every Friday morning.
God, that's got to be exciting.
With their vans. And we would be empty by Saturday lunchtime. And then next Friday, another 5,000 pairs. And this happened through October, November, December. And we threw away over $1 million worth of orders at wholesale. But I didn't care. We were alive. We were in business, you know. And then, you know, the weirdest thing happened between Christmas and New Year. 2 things. Number one, the life insurance policy paid out on Neil's death, and it was just enough money for me to buy the business 100% back from his widow. So who could have ever predicted that?
Well, that's what you bought it for, though, right?
Yep.
You bought it for that very reason.
Yeah, but never thinking you'd use it.
Yeah.
But so that was super lucky. But the other thing happened was the customs broker screwed up, and he shipped 2,000 pairs of Thugs boots to me, and 1,000 pairs of my boots up to the Thugs warehouse. So he was in San Clemente.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I called him up and I said, you know, let's swap him out. As much as I wanted to destroy his boots, but we swapped them out, and I was driving back from San Clemente through Camp Pendleton there on the way back, and I was thinking, you know, how come we couldn't keep boots in our warehouse for 24 hours, and the Thugs warehouse, which was bigger than ours, was floor to ceiling full of sheepskin boots. And it made me realize that the loyalty of my customers was so powerful that they refused to buy the knockoff. And
you had built the brand to that point.
And they threw away over $2 million worth of orders at retail rather than chime in with the knockoff competitor. And that was a testament to the loyalty and all of those years. Excuse me, I'll choke it up. And all those years of visiting stores and becoming friends with the retailers and all of that in-house work inside the stores, the customer service was proven to be so loyal that it's a lesson for everybody in today's market. You know, we're ruled by websites and online stores and clicks. And if you're selling online and you don't reach out through that somehow to check in with your customers, you'll never get the loyalty that you can develop.
So it's not just the quality of the product, it's the customer service and the connection to your customer.
That emotional connection is where the loyalty lies. And you must do it, even in today's world. If you don't have it, someone will always be cheaper, someone will always be faster. But if you can establish your brand to be known like UGG is known, not just for the quality of the product, it's known for the service and the backup and everything that goes into making a brand.
Every business's dream is to have a brand that's synonymous with that industry, right? If you don't use the word I'm going to web search something anymore, you say Google, your brand UGG was synonymous with these sheepskin boots.
Yep.
And did you have any inclination when you were building this that would become the case, that you were building something that would be so iconic that people couldn't think about that boot without the word UGG coming to the brain?
I dreamed about it. I saw girls in yoga leggings and a sweatshirt and UGG boots 20 years before it ever really happened.
Wow.
Right?
You're responsible.
I dreamed about different ways UGGs could be worn, knowing how practical it would be. But with Americans, it was, we have mud and slush and they'll never work in our area, and what if they get dirty? And they're all valid concerns, but they don't realize that you can't rip sheepskin, and if it gets dirty, you wash it, and if you can't sweat in it because it breathes, but you can stand in minus 20 degrees snow without socks and you won't get cold either because it insulates you. There's all these fabulous things that had to be part of the education of the market as we went forward. But getting back to the customer service thing, though, that it really was an eye-opener for me to, here I end up with the entire company back again and alive, and next year I was able to raise money. And there have all been some pretty down stories, but how did I get through that last year? And the four most powerful statements in my book are four mantras that I live by. I read them 25 years ago in a philosophical book, and I carry them forward in my daily planner every January. I saw them yesterday when I was putting it into my New Year's calendar, right? And these statements are: feast upon uncertainty, fatten upon disappointment, invigorate in the presence of difficulties, and enthuse over apparent defeat.
Wow.
And they sound sort of negative, uncertainty, difficulties and all that, but really if you look at the first word, feast, fatten, enthuse, invigorate, they're the foremost. You can take anything in your life, it doesn't matter if it's a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, a business situation, it could be a kid situation, and there's nothing that can happen that you can't look at one of these four mantras and figure out a way to make it better.
You said your book, The Birth of a Brand, is a roadmap for entrepreneurs, but what I'm hearing is this book is a roadmap for a lot of life.
It sure is. There's so much philosophy in here.
Entrepreneurs run into adversity, but so does everybody else.
Everybody does.
This sounds like really good.
Yeah, it's great philosophy and a lot of spirituality of my own personal beliefs in there as well. And it's why the book's been so successful.
So if somebody came to you today, Brian, and said, I'm starting up a business, is there a piece of advice? You just espoused four philosophical ideas. Is there a single thing, or would it be a group of things that you would want to transmit to that person?
I wish we had a lot of more segments here.
That's true. I asked you that question when we have 1 minute left.
Here's the secret. If you can figure out what you can do better than anybody else, and then do it, you cannot help but be successful. Now that you can quote that. It's not in my book, but that's what I've learned and will be part of my next reissued book. If you can figure out what you can do better than anybody else and do it, you cannot help but be successful. And the beauty of it is you don't have to know it all when you start. Like when I started UGG, I had no idea what was in store. I read the book of Nike, and UGG's first 6 years of sales were greater than the first 6 years of sales of Nike.
Seriously. Wow.
And they didn't know what they were doing either. Phil Knight and this other Rudd Johnson.
What was the first thing you said? Feast upon uncertainty?
Feast upon uncertainty. And look at that first, year of sales of 28 pairs. I had no idea what I was doing. But they were the funnest years. The best years were those early years where I didn't have a clue.
You travel the world now?
Yeah.
You see UGGs on people's feet around the world?
Everywhere I go, yeah.
That's got to be an amazing feeling. Brian Smith, the founder of UGGs, passionate innovator, author, keynote speaker, and The Birth of a Brand is available on Amazon right now. Highly recommended. Brian, thank you so much for this great interview.
It's my pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
Have a great and prosperous day. Bye-bye, folks.
Well, I think that slid in pretty nicely.
Yeah, we're starting the year strong. That was great.
We used every available second.
I like that.
That's good, yeah.
Sponsors pay for this. I want to use it.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great story. You've been a real blessing. Thank you very much.
Thanks for saying that, yeah.
And thank you for the book. We'll treasure this.
Yeah,
I will read that.
I hope you do, because
I will.
there's a lot of stuff in there that you'll...